My favorite thing about the movie is it feels like a movie.
Yes, Mr. Harry Styles, I know exactly what you mean, and that is genuinely one of the very first thoughts I had after seeing Sinners. That first viewing experience, I've seen it 3 times at this point, was different. Different enough that it forced me to make this video, and I don't even cover films on this channel. And it may be that I just go to the cinema far too often to watch some absolutely terrible movies, but Sinners immediately felt like an event film. The kind that in years gone by would be one of maybe 2 or 3 genuine blockbusters that would come along any given summer. Now, of course, that cinema going experience is very different. We have the advent of infinite streaming options, as well as what feels like 200 or 300 million dollar plus movies every single month. As I sit down to record this video, I can go to my local cinema to watch Lilo and Stitch, Thunderbolts, Minecraft, Mission Impossible, The Accountant 2, and of course, Sinners. Sinners is the outlier from all of these films for a single reason. It is the only film here that is neither a sequel or based on existing IP. It is a wholly original screenplay that very easily could have crashed and burned had it been in the hands of dispassionate creatives. Here's a stat that I think is pretty damn depressing. Sinners has recently crossed $200 million at the box office domestically in the US. It is the first fully original film to do that since 2017, which was Coco. Coco, of course, is a production of Pixar and Disney, which are basically money printing machines at this point. And I'll take the less cynical route here and not solely blame this on audiences. Studios love to play it safe, and if, for example, Godzilla vs. Kong 5 is going to guarantee them a shitload of money, they literally have zero incentive to put that large budget behind one or several original films. But Sinners isn't just an original film, it's an R-rated musical horror western set almost 100 years ago in the Deep South, where vampires sing Irish folk songs. Nothing on paper screams box office success, yet I've gone to see it 3 times. Why? Why is this film broadly loved by audiences, critics, and even film bros alike? There almost seems to be unanimous consensus that this is the best film of 2025 so far. It affected me as such that I'm making this video when, after 6+ years on YouTube, I've never formally dedicated a video to a film. So, as if anyone isn't aware at this point, Sinners was written, directed, and produced by Ryan Coogler, best known for his 2 Black Panther films, as well as Creed and Fruitvale Station, all of which have featured Michael B. Jordan. Ryan Coogler was inspired to make Sinners through his connection to an uncle of his connection to blues music, and the transformative power of music. Sinners may be this larger-than-life fusion of genres, but at its core, it's a deeply personal creative expression. That is palpable just in the way Ryan Coogler speaks about his influences on the film and his love for the medium itself. I encourage everyone to watch this video here where he explains how Sinners was shot and the various formats it's available to watch in. I'm lucky enough to live in London, where I had access to one of the 10 locations worldwide that could project the IMAX 15 per film version of Sinners, and it was fucking mind-blowing. In the press and promotion for the film, you can feel that passion and his knowledge for this art form, which many people were aware of course, but this being his first original film, it just feels different. What is undoubtedly one of the integral aspects of Sinners' success is its music, both the score and the soundtrack. Sinners was scored by Ludwig Göransson, whom Ryan Coogler has known for almost 20 years. Ludwig Göransson has scored the likes of Black Panther, Oppenheimer, Tenet, Turning Red, and more. He is like the most on-fire composer in the film industry at the moment, and that's on top of his production catalogue. The following songs are all his doing.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Back in myself, felt like hell. Fuck, I risked it, pace yourself. How you living? Know you drilling. Strangers by.
Both Ryan and Ludwig have talked at length about their musical experiences and inspirations and how that all contributed to the musical language of Sinners. The score itself continually evolves as we learn more about our characters, drawing from a wide range of genre influences. It's of course rooted in blues music with those twangy guitars, strings, and banjos, but there's some folk elements, some R&B, some hip-hop, and even some metal sprinkled in. I happen to find the score incredibly evocative and moving at times. One of my favorite pieces is Mound Bayou, which plays as Smoke tries to dissuade Sammy from following in his footsteps, as simultaneously Stack and Mary share their last conversation as mortal beings. I can't describe to you why this piece of music makes me feel the way it does. To be honest with you, it sounds like fleeting hope, like almost reaching utopia, and that's just one of a handful of moments in the score that do this to me. But maybe even more importantly is the soundtrack, which is a combination of covers, original songs, and traditional folk music. Whether it be Sammy's traveling song towards the start, or the incredibly emotional Last Time I Seen the Sun that plays over the credits, it's almost as if the songs serve as shorthand for the plot itself. And speaking of the plot, it's one that works on so many different levels. At the base level, you have this crime western horror film that is extremely entertaining. We have Smoke and Stack as our instantly recognizable anti-heroes, outlaws and war veterans who must protect their dream of starting this juke joint from this unknown supernatural being invading their space. It's a crowd pleaser, there's scares, there's laughs, several emotionally heavy moments, and an array of characters you can both root for and identify yourself in. All the hallmarks that make up a proper, almost old school type blockbuster. But underneath that, you have several important contextual, historical, and narrative factors that force you to invest in these characters and this film more than you would otherwise. Let's start with Smoke and Stack, of course, both played amazingly by Michael B. Jordan. I'm not joking when I say that, like 20 minutes into this film, I legitimately forgot that he was one person. Both characters are so distinct in their speech patterns, their mannerisms, and even the way they stand. Ryan Coogler makes it easy for everyone to distinguish between Smoke and Stack by basically having them color-coded throughout the film, but I honestly believe we would be able to tell them apart even if they were in identical clothes. At the start of the film, Smoke and Stack have recently returned to Mississippi after a stint working for the Mafia in Chicago, and of course having been World War I veterans prior to that. The fact that they operate in this criminal underbelly and are World War I veterans are facts that cannot be separated from one another. The historical context is crucial. By the end of World War I, over 2 million African Americans had served in the US military. Those men, at this point in time, over 50 years after the end of the Civil War, were well within their rights to expect some sort of hero's welcome, but this was not the case, and I'll use this one person as an example. Robert Sweeney was a soldier who served in the 92nd Division of the American Expeditionary Forces in World War I, and he was interviewed in the 1980s about his experiences coming back home. He recalled being constantly harassed as soon as he returned to the USA. He said, "The American white man did everything to play you down and degrade you, and not let you think you had been over there to fight to make the world safe for democracy. They wanted to put you in your place." And this was no exaggeration. African American soldiers returning home after World War I were treated worse than any other group of American soldiers. There are several cases of Black World War I veterans being lynched in the US, with reasons including allegedly insulting white women and refusing to remove their military uniforms. That's why when Delta Slim is telling the story of the train station lynching, Stack's bravado and cheekiness momentarily evaporates. He understands the weight of what he's talking about. And bringing it back to both Stack and Smoke, it's no wonder they find themselves in this line of work. They came back with the distinction that they thought would finally grant them the bare minimum human respect from white Americans. They were soldiers who put their lives on the line for them, yet they returned to even more hostility both day to day and structurally. Those equal opportunities at making a decent, honest living simply didn't really exist. And with the way veterans were treated, why would they want that anyway? That's the context where we find Smoke and Stack. They aren't just these mindless criminals out to make a quick dollar. And then there's Sammy, whom, despite his absence from a lot of the promotional material, is kind of the protagonist of this story. A young blues player, cousins with Smoke and Stack, who clearly looks up to the both of them in spite of his ultra-Christian pastor father. Sammy's relationship to music, his father, and religion is established very early on and efficiently without the need for extensive exposition. We understand where his passions lie, what he desires, and how religion is imposed upon him. And that's an aspect that I feel is sorely overlooked. I don't believe Sinners is necessarily a critique of religion or Christianity in of itself. I've seen arguments that the film is actually some sort of biblical warning about the evils of music, and because Sammy didn't heed his father's warning, he must suffer the consequences. I definitely don't think it's that either. It would be very surface level and reductive for the film to take the angle that either religion good, listen to your daddy, or religion bad, I'ma do my own thing. It's a lot more nuanced than that. The tension and unresolved conflict between Sammy and his dad isn't because he is religious. It's because he is using said religion as a means of control, in direct opposition to Sammy's freedom and artistic expression. The title Sinners doesn't mean these characters are evil in the eyes of God or something like that. It refers to these people being flawed human beings. Ryan Coogler himself said that this film was about identity, and he used Smoke as an example of this. He said Smoke sees himself as a father and as a man who's unredeemable because of his past sins, but he also sees himself as a soldier. For him, soldier means he's a killer. Everyone in this film is wrestling with their identity and their past within the wider context of 1930s Jim Crow era Southern America. The film opens up with a narration about the transcendent power of music and those people in particular who have this almost divine power. Regardless of era or genre, their musical talent has the capacity to bridge the past, present, and future altogether. And because of this gift, it can also attract the attention of evil. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll probably know that music is literally my favorite art form on this planet. I believe it to honestly be one of the most important experiences of my short time on Earth, aside from interacting with my loved ones. What I love about Sinner's relationship with music is how specific and universal it is. It is one of the most universal experiences we can share, regardless of the style of music or the time period. The feeling I had hearing Kendrick Lamar live for the first time 10 years ago is fundamentally the same thing as some kid in the 70s listening to Stevie Wonder, or someone in a bar in the 50s hearing John Coltrane, or someone that lives on your street blasting fucking Imagine Dragons as you watch this video. That connection with music and the emotions it conjures is unlike anything else we experience. And I might have strong opinions on certain artists and not like their music, but I can't deny the emotions they conjure. I'm never going to feel anything listening to Benson Boone or Big Sean, but their fans do. And I'm sure when they listen to them, they feel the same unexplainable feeling I do when I listen to my favorite artists. That scene in the middle of Sinners, the surreal musical montage where Sammy summons the spirits of the past and future, is flat out one of the best scenes I've seen in a film in the last 10 years. As soon as that dude with the electric guitar stepped on screen, it was a classic. The film became a classic. I was sat there thinking I better see some brother spinning decks at some point, and I was not disappointed. Of course, most, if not all of the genres of music that are being blended together is music of the African diaspora. It's a specific moment that communicates something so universal. Not only that, but in this universe, that power lures in those with perhaps more malicious intent. And in this case, that is in the form of Remick. We're first introduced to Remick as he flees Choctaw vampire hunters. He finds refuge with a clan couple that give him shelter after they let him into their home. Remick soon turns the couple and recruits them before they show up at Smoke and Stack's juke joint. Remick and the couple are refused entry, with Cornbread, Annie, and the twins being rightfully suspicious of their presence. The three attempt to convince them that all they want to do is play music together and that they stand for love. Smoke assumes Remick is part of the clan, and hilariously, Remick denies the claim and states that he is for equality. In a lesser movie, this would obviously be a lie, and it would be revealed that, oh, the white vampires are racist and they want to kill black people because the white vampires stand and are a metaphor for racism. Oh, it would be like that. And as we come to learn, Remick is actually telling the truth somewhat as the three perform their rendition of Pick Poor Robin Clean.
Pick poor Robin clean. I picked his head, I picked his feet.
The scene is played for laughs as their version is painfully cheerful and devoid of soul, in stark contrast to Sammy's performance that lured them there in the first place. The song itself is part of the blues traditional canon, and by virtue of that fact, it can serve as a metaphor for black expression and its appropriation, sometimes done unintentionally. Delta Slim earlier on remarks that white folks have no problem with black music, just with the people playing it. Remick's rendition of Pick Poor Robin Clean is their unintentional appropriation and bastardization of black art, ironically coming in close proximity to Remick's genuine assertion that he doesn't believe he is racist. Remick is immediately drawn to Sammy and his musical talent, but those inside the juke joint ultimately do not allow Remick and his followers to enter. Mary soon goes outside to vet the three in an attempt at making more money for the juke joint. As she greets them, they are playing Wild Mountain Time, an Irish folk song based on an original Scottish poem and composition. In contrast to their rendition of Pick Paul Rubbing Clean, this feels sincere and heartfelt. Not to mention that it is a genuinely beautiful version of the song. The three aren't performing necessarily, but expressing, and it also serves as a kind of siren song for Mary. As Remick talks with her, she admits that she's in a state of mourning as her mother just passed away. The lyrics of Wild Mountain Time speak of summertime arriving, trees blooming, and community. Almost as if his plan to turn Mary to his community hinges on her need for comfort after the trauma of having buried her mother. Remick begins to drawl as he states that Mary and everyone inside the juke joint needs saving, and it's an angle that Remick seems to sincerely believe. It's at this point where we must skip ahead briefly to touch on Remick's Irish heritage. We're provided with nuggets of information during the film that he is hundreds and hundreds of years old. If we are to infer from the information he gives us, he is at least from the 5th century. That's thanks to him seemingly bearing witness to the introduction of Christianity to Ireland, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, the reason he is such a compelling villain is because you can very clearly see his thought process and how he got to the conclusion he got to. Remick witnessed the persecution and violence against the people of Ireland and sees parallels to that and what is happening in 1930s America. But he is also incredibly manipulative and selfish. He is the antagonist after all. He uses what he sees as common ground, a shared experience of discrimination and persecution, as the compelling bedrock for his personal goals. He wants the community that Smoke, Stack, Annie, and everyone else in the juke joint currently have. Those two things are true at the same time. I believe Remick does sincerely resonate with the plight of the African American in the 1930s because of his experiences in Ireland. I also believe his intentions are warped and selfish. He actually reminds me of another Ryan Coogler villain, played by Michael B. Jordan of all people. Killmonger from Black Panther was also another man molded by personal tragedy, loss, and the need for belonging. He saw his ideological stance as just enough that it should be reached by any means necessary, but alongside that was an insatiable lust for power. So we have this historical context for Remick alongside an acknowledgement that music in this universe has the power to resurrect spirits of long-gone ancestors. Remick performs and sings for a third time, and it culminates in his most authentic one yet. It's no coincidence that each time he attempts a song, it becomes more and more a reflection of who he actually is. He, alongside most of the patrons of the juke joint that have now been turned, including Mary and Stack, performs the 19th century Irish folk song Rocky Road to Dublin. The song tells the common tale of the hopeful young Irishman leaving his home in pursuit of a better life in Dublin, and chronicles the hardships along the way. The rendition in this version feels like Remick's genuine attempt to do what Sammy did with the I Lied to You song. He is desperate to summon the souls of his long-gone family. As each of the three Remick songs become more authentic, the facade slowly slips. Pick Paul Rubbing Clean was the soulless appropriation of a blues standard. Wild Mountain Time was beautiful, but clearly served to lure Mary into their community. Rocky Road to Dublin is 100% solely about Remick's expression. Everyone knows he's a vampire and what he wants with Sammy at this point. The fact it is performed so passionately proves that he is telling the truth when he says he wants to be reunited with his ancestors. The only difference, it appears, is that he doesn't have this gift that Sammy appears to have. Now, I've got this far, and there are some aspects of the film I haven't even touched upon. Smoke and Annie's tender romance and trauma that binds them together, the fact that Annie practices hoodoo and has been protecting Smoke for years, Stack's relationship with Mary, Cornbread's hilarious presence, and so on and so forth. We could be here all day. But instead of getting into the nitty-gritty details of every plotline, I want to talk more about thematic implications and parallels, particularly concerning Smoke, Stack, and eventually Sammy. Smoke and Stack's fates appear wildly different, but are actually incredibly similar. Smoke, after having to end Annie's life after she was bitten, finally gets what he's been longing for, a reunion with the baby they lost together. As Smoke appears to pass away, he is greeted by Annie and his baby in white, seemingly ready to take him to some form of afterlife, perhaps heaven. Stack and Mary continue to roam the earth as revealed in the mid-credit scene where they link up with a pensioner-aged Sammy. Stack clearly loves Mary just as much as Smoke loves Annie. Their relationship dynamics are wildly different, but that fundamental love is the same. Both Smoke and Stack are together for eternity with their true loves. Smoke will never see the darkness of this mortal world again, while Stack will literally never see the sunlight again. Stack reminiscing on that day, saying it was the last time he saw the sun and the last time he saw his brother, made me cry immediately, and I'm not even sure why. It's such a simple, childlike memory, and I think that's the power in it. Sinners somehow ends with virtually every major character either dying or having their souls stuck on Earth as vampires, and yet its ending isn't bleak, or it doesn't feel bleak at least. I find it actually quite hopeful and speaks to the parallels of life and art. The idea that both are these very fleeting moments of beauty that unite us regardless of who we are. And I honestly didn't think I'd come away with such a profound experience from a Ryan Coogler horror movie, but there we are. I do believe this is a film we'll be talking about 20 years from now with great fondness and nostalgia. It's a testament to original filmmaking, a love letter to art, both music and film, and most importantly, it feels like a fucking movie.